Games are getting huge, like way too big. I love the concept of these massive open game worlds, but several factors deter me from wanting to play them. I mean, how cool does it sound to enter a whole new world complete with its own lore, places to see, and things to do? I mean, I love video games. I've played them my whole life and I have no intention of stopping. They offer a type of interactive escapism that few other mediums can offer. Yet the unrelenting flood of new releases is both a joy and a pain for me. There's a haunting thought that floats around in my cerebral cortex. Are games just too big to finish anymore? Perhaps there's an argument to be made about aging here. The influx of responsibilities as one gets older juxtaposed to the carefree lifestyle of a child. I am no longer a child. I'm a young adult who now has to deal with the commitments that come with it. With these new commitments comes a lack of time. For leisure, for friends, for family, and for creative pursuits. I simply don't have as much time for games as I did. It's this way for many adults around the world. I'd love to be able to commit to games like I did when I was young, just exploring virtual worlds for the thrill of it, engaging with their many systems, and trying to master them. I never had a problem mastering games of my youth because I simply had so much free time. Mastering time management, on the other hand, is a new beast that I am desperately trying to vanquish. With all factors of life, a job, a girlfriend, regular friends, creative pursuits, it seems that games tend to fall to the wayside as my many responsibilities grow. Modern titles such as Elden Ring or Red Dead 2 are simply too intimidating to pick up for me. I know for a fact that I won't be able to complete these games without committing all my free time to them. And I like variety. It adds excitement to my life and I aim to experience a wide variety of games. Variety is the spice of life, as they say. And to commit to one game for 200 hours feels like a blow to the gut. There's simply too many games to enjoy in a lifetime. I want to revisit old favorites and try brand new games. And I think the sheer scale of these games is both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, they offer incredibly dense worlds, enthralling deep stories, and an endless amount of gameplay. The time investment, on the other hand, is something that is just getting more and more difficult to muster. For sure, some people are able to juggle with their life and gaming in a clean, balanced way, but it seems that I'm unable to do that. I find life to be a little grimy. Not in a pessimistic way, but perhaps in a realistic kind of way. Small problems can rear their ugly head at any moment, throwing you off your groove and requiring your attention. The pull of responsibilities and the pull of these massive games is a conundrum that's something we face daily, forcing us to navigate the fine line between hobbies and obligations. I simply don't have the time to devote to these games. On top of not having time, I find myself burning out as well. There's a saying that goes, the flame that burns twice as bright burns half as long, and it resonates deeply with my experience with oversized games. The excitement and anticipation I feel starting up an epic new title gives way to exhaustion, as the sheer scale and vastness becomes overwhelming. They're fun, but I can't help but think of Sisyphus pushing a boulder up the mountain for eternity with no end in sight. I find myself playing many shorter games nowadays. It works a lot better for me. I enjoy concisely designed games that don't overstay their welcome. I recently did a video about Paratopic and I find it to be an excellent example of what I'm talking about. It's a rather brief game, but very impactful. My first playthrough took me maybe 45 minutes to complete, and it left me with questions, wanting more. I even played it again the next day to make my own conclusions about the fragmented story. Its very strength is its ability to create a rich, disturbing atmosphere within a compact frame. Each moment feels significant, and it's one of its greatest strengths. Quality over quantity, there was no filler content to be found. Paratopic is tightly designed to show what it needed to show and didn't overstay its welcome even for a minute. And while oversized AAA games offer impeccable value for your money, they can lead to filler content. Just tasks to complete off a checklist like you're shopping at the grocery store. Feels monotonous, making me question why on earth I'm delivering a pizza to a fairy just to get a small amount of gold or an achievement. It can feel pointless after a while, and Skyrim is definitely a culprit with its Radiant quests. That pick a random location and tell you to fetch an item and bring it back, or kill X amount of NPCs in return for a reward that just isn't worth getting. Or even Far Cry, where you have to do the same things, raid an enemy outpost, kill and skin X amount of animals, climb up a radio tower, and Assassin's Creed does some of the same shit and I found myself tired of it. This filler content manifests itself as repetitive tasks, fetch quests, and artificially prolonged gameplay that doesn't serve the player. Sure, it adds to the playtime, but it's at the expense of the player engagement and satisfaction. I often find myself burning out when I play oversized games, and it sucks. While not all large AAA games do this deceitful tactic, many of them do, and it leads me to not even want to give them a chance. And the sheer volume of games is alarming. There are thousands of new games released each year over many different platforms, and the opportunity to experience them all just isn't there. It's unrealistic, there's simply no way. I'm so overwhelmed at the vast catalog of games. These mega AAA games end up being thrown to the wayside in favor of shorter experiences for me. I can experience more when games are shorter, and I think many players are starting to feel the same way. Why play the newest oversized game? Well, there's many reasons I can understand. They offer immensely detailed experiences that can consume hundreds of hours. While that might be a highlight for some people, that's the lowest point for me. I think these games should be celebrated. They're technological marvels with insane content, the most advanced graphics, storytelling, and world building. These games are at the pinnacle of Mount Gamer. There's just way too much. I'm ready to come down now. I don't find myself wanting to ascend the peak of Mount Gamer though. I typically don't fall prey to the hype train of new games anyway. There's an overwhelming abundance of games available today. It's a beautiful problem to have. Players can experience what is practically an infinite amount of worlds, stories, and gameplay styles, but the backlog just keeps growing bigger. This all culminates in a bit of decision fatigue, and that's why I, for the most part, have decided that shorter games are the ones for me. The evolution of games towards vast, sprawling worlds and immense playtimes isn't necessarily a problem within the gaming industry as a whole, but with me and people short on time. The sheer magnitude of these games poses significant challenges for players, whose lives are filled with responsibilities and limited time. As commitments grow and free time lessens, the prospect of spending hundreds of hours on a single game just doesn't feel right. There are just far too many games for me to spend all my time on one oversized game. Ultimately, the scale of modern games is impressive, but not for me. There has to be some sort of balance here. And said balance lies within shorter, more concise games. I guess you could say I'm an indie game guy, and that probably isn't far from the truth. If you too feel overwhelmed by oversized games, let me know. Oversized games are just too big, and I'm intimidated by them.